For today's activity, we are going to use the measurements from our drawing here to create our skimmer body and the measurements to create our skimmer fins. So inside of your packet, you're going to have 3 pieces of tag board. Here they are right here. We have the larger one. We're going to be using that today for our skimmer body. And then we have 2 other ones that are different in size. If you look closely here, notice I have a little bit of a overhang here. They are 3.5 inches wide here, but one is 3.5 by 3.5, while the other is 3.5 by 3/4. For the skimmer fins, we need the one that's going to be 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, a perfect square. Whereas for the compressor here, we need the one that's going to be 3.5 inches by 3 3/4. We'll lay this out at a later date, put this to the side, and we'll do that another time. Today, we are just going to be laying out the skimmer fins. Okay, again, the piece that is 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. There it is right there. And then the skimmer body, which is going to be 4 inches wide by 11 inches in length. Okay, and again, all those measurements can be found on our drawing sheet right here. So we're first going to start with the skimmer body here. And to create the skimmer body, what we have to do is we have to create these long lines all the way across the top of the skimmer body there and the bottom. Okay. We're also going to disregard any kind of folds or cuts. That's later on. Today, again, all we are doing is just laying out the dimensions necessary for the skimmer body and for the skimmer fins. No cutting, no bending, any of that today. So to do that, I have to, again, measure down 1/2 inch right here and draw a nice straight line there, and up 1/2 inch here, draw a nice straight line there too. So, and to draw on a straight line with just a ruler, we have to have 2 points of reference. If you just could measure up 1/2 inch and then drawing a straight line, it's going to be crooked. So we're going to measure down 1/2 inch, or measure up 1/2 inch here and here as well. So farther down to the right here and to the left, and then connect those 2 points to get that 1/2 inch offset. We're going to do the same to the top here. So let's do that now. I'm going to, again, if I take a look at my drawing sheet, I have to measure up 1/2 inch and draw a line all the way down. So I'm not going to use the end of my ruler here. I'm going to use another mark on here to make it easier for myself and to make sure I have a true measurement, because if you look closely on this ruler, notice the 0 isn't really 0 over here. And we have to be exact with this, with our measurements. So I'm going to start a little bit over here, and also too, sometimes the rulers fall and they will bend and they just want to be accurate. So we're just going to use our 1 as our 0. And I'm just going to measure over 1/2 inch, make a little mark there. I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom here. I'm going to 0 out with my 1 here, measure 1/2 inch, make my mark. And now with those 2 markings right there, what I can do is simply draw my nice straight line. So again, I'm going to line those up with my 2 points of reference. I got my 1 up top there, and my 1 on the bottom there. And I'm just going to simply draw a nice straight line. Okay. And that's, again, it's just has an offset 1/2 inch on both sides. So now I'm going to do this side here as well. I'm going to use my 1 right here to 0 it out, measure over 1/2 inch. I'm going to do the same thing down here, use my 1 to 0 it out, 1/2 inch. And now what I'm going to do is just connect those 2 points, okay? Or use those 2 points right there and draw my line all the way down. Okay? Nice straight line. So it looks like that. Okay, so again, offset 1/2 inch, and again, we have those 2 points of reference to draw those. We're not just drawing it off of 1. So now if we look at our drawing, we also have to have another line right here. And this will come into use later on. But for now, all we're going to do is just measure up 3 inches of an inch from the bottom on both sides and connect that line in between those 2 lines that we just offset. Okay, so I'm going to take my trusty little ruler here. This one I can start at 3, okay? And I can just come all the way up to my 0 right here, that's 3 inches. Do the same thing over here. Start at my 3, go up to my 0 right there. And now what I can do is simply connect those 2 points in between. I'm not going to go past those lines. Okay? It's just in between those 2 offsets. And that's it. We're not going to cut anything. We're not going to fold anything or bend anything. We are just simply going to lay out the measurements for the skimmer right there. And that's the skimmer body. And that's what we have done right there. So now moving on to the skimmer fins, we want to again make sure we have the correct one. That is going to read 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is I have to cut this in half diagonally. So I'm going to use my ruler and cut this and draw a line from corner to corner. So I have 2 equal ones. So I'm just going to use my straight edge part of my ruler there. I'm going to line it up corner to corner. There it is on that corner there, and I'm just going to simply draw my line, cutting that in half like so. And now what I have to do is I have to measure down 1/2 inch here, and then measure over 1/2 inch here as well. And see, what we're going to do is we're just going to draw that line right there till it hits that point there, and then this point here. And we're going to cut those out at a later date. Okay, again, we're just laying out our measurements today. So on this side over here, I'm just going to measure down 1/2 inch. I just so happen to use 8 here as my 0. I'm going to come down 1/2 inch. Right here, I make my mark. And now I'm going to get it nice and straight here. And come over to that line right there where it intersects. And now, really, I don't need that measurement there as long as I have this nice and straight here. And this one we don't have to be exact on here because, again, these are just the fins. And we just cut these off so they're not sharp up top. That's all we're doing those for. We'll be cutting those off so it's not sharp and we cut ourselves on them. Okay? So again, we do the same thing over here. We're just going to measure up 1/2 inch. So I'm going to use my 1 on this one. Again, can be any measurement that you want. Okay? Meaning like a 2 or a 3 starting out. And again, just make sure you just measure up 1/2 inch. So there's my mark right there. So again, I'm going to make sure that this is nice and straight. Somewhat straight as I can get it. Again, this doesn't have to be exact like our skimmer body because we're just cutting those off later on when it comes time to, again, protect ourselves so we don't actually get hurt with a nice sharp edge. And that's it. So that's right there is how we lay out the measurements for the skimmer body, which is this part up top here, and for our skimmer fins, which is the bottom left there. Notice again, we didn't cut anything out, we didn't fold anything, bend anything, we've just laid out the dimensions necessary for this. That's all I have to do for today. Good luck, have fun.